Evening, Danvers. This is our June 24th school committee meeting. It's the final session before the summer break. I'd like to start by reading our Danvers Public Schools mission. Danvers Public Schools is a dynamic community of independent learners dedicated to respect, responsibility, creativity, and the pursuit of academic and personal excellence. This meeting is being broadcast on Danvers Community Access Television. If there's anyone in the audience recording, can you let us know? I don't hear any. All right, I call this meeting to order. And let's, okay, why don't we start with items of interest from Superintendent, School Committee, and anyone who may be online from the public. We'll start with you, Mr. Bauer.
Thank you, Chair. The end of the year has come to a close. As Mary said, we're preparing for next year, we have been. So I have more of my updates momentarily, but just want to say thank you to all of our families, our educators, as well as our students for, I think, a great school year.
Fantastic. Any comments from the school committee? Well, I'll just echo. It's been quite a year. I know we're sharing some information during our call today on your first year assessment, but I'll say, it's been I'd say a pretty impressive first year for a superintendent. I'll just be blunt and call it out, given everything that we've been through. But I think there's a lot more to say once we go through the assessment. But for me, I think it's been one of the better sessions that I've been a part of, and it continues to be an honor to serve on this. So, thank you, and thank you to the Danvers community. Okay, anyone online from the Danvers community that wants to raise their hand? If not, we'll go on to information from the superintendent.
Great. Thank you, Chair Lopes. I have two items. I'll flip to my quick screen share if I can do that and just get moving. Can everybody see that okay? Awesome. Okay. Just two items, student services update, as well as the administrative retreat that will take place on Wednesday and Thursday of this week. So, I jumped too many slides. Aha, there we go. First of all, I just want to say that we've gone through a lot of transition with our student services department. And momentarily, I'll turn it over to our incoming director, Christina Ryan, to introduce the new team and student services that we've recently gone through the interview process, vetting process, and had an opportunity to put together, I think, a great team. It's been a whirlwind of a year, as mentioned earlier, and really proud of our team, doing the best that we can to get through and knowing that we have lots of improvements on the horizon. We're currently going through a special education audit, and that information will be brought back to school committee at the beginning of the school year. So a lot of interviews have taken place, documents have been analyzed, and I do have to say that Christina is starting the work already, although she's not officially on the job yet until July 1st. But she's been transitioning, meeting with tons of stakeholders, reviewing information and setting up to hit the ground running on July 1st. So I would like to introduce Christina Ryan, and I'd like her at that time to say a little bit about the transition as well as introduce the new team of student services. But before we do that, I would like to say a thank you to departing members of the student service team, Eric Oxford, who's moving on to Ipswich as Director of Student Services, Dr. Jen Callison, who's moving on at the Cotting School, an adult transitional program, and as well as Carrie Isidoro, who's served for 12 years as our out-of-district coordinator, who's going to move back to the high school as the school psychologist. So I just want to say thank you for their efforts and also assistance through the transition period. So right now, I would like to turn this over to Ms. Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Bauer. I will start by introducing Mr. Munyon. So Mr. Derek Munyon is our new Elementary Assistant Director of Student Services. In Mr. Munyon's 14-year career within public education, he has honed his skills in creating tailored special education programs that cater to the unique needs of students with complex learning profiles. As a BCBA, he deeply understands behavioral analysis and intervention strategies, which have been invaluable in designing effective student support systems. Since 2015, he has served as a program director for the Linfield Public Schools. Mr. Money has leveraged his behavioral background to drive positive change within the district's special education programs. In this role, he has applied his expertise as a BCBA and embraced the challenges of special education administration, further expanding his skill set and knowledge base. Mr. Money was able to come in and spend half a day with Mr. Oxford and myself, helping to successfully transition to the district. Next is Ms. Marla De La Cruz, who is our Secondary Assistant Director of Student Services. Ms. De La Cruz is a passionate instructional leader with a sincere drive to improve teaching and learning for all students, especially those from underserved and underrepresented communities. Her expertise is a result of over 20 years of experience within education spaces as a school educator, building leader, and district coordinator. As a district leader, she built the capacity of the staff and leadership team to embed equitable learning opportunities across all tiers, establish transformative social emotional learning, and mental and behavioral health services. Ms. De La Cruz is a reflective practitioner who is always asking questions, looking at data, and examining whether or not changes have led to improvements. And lastly, we have Ms. Angelique DeCoste, our out of district coordinator, who has recently been hired, who will be at our administrative retreat this week. Ms. DeCoste is coming to Danvers with 11 years of experience as Andover's elementary special education program head, overseeing and enhancing special education programming across 5 elementary schools, including the district's language-based program. She has organized the training of over 160 educators in various specialized reading programs and 50 educators in specialized writing programs, continually monitoring the need for additional training. She has collaborated with her general education counterparts to reduce referrals to special education by providing general education reading specialists with training in multisensory reading methodologies. Thank you to our 3 new hires.
Fantastic. Welcome aboard.
Congratulations. Welcome.
We're glad to have you all with us. And congratulations, Christina, on putting the team together so quickly. Christina, Dan, everybody who contributed. And, you really can all put your stamp on the district, really building from the ground up. So it's a great opportunity, and we're glad to have you.
Thank you very much.
I don't know if the committee has any questions or anything else for our new team coming aboard. And I do want to mention that Bethany Stangus will continue on as our coordinator of pre-K programming. I didn't bring her on. You met her earlier as we went through the pre-K audit process. So she's working and setting up our extended school year program that will take place July 8th. So I don't know if you have any questions or anything else you'd like for our new team. Awesome.
I think we ought to give them a chance to get started before we pepper them with questions.
Well, I appreciate them taking the time to come out tonight. And I know the lens, working with Christina, having the ability to build a team, the lens is to look at our programming that we have and to go with our philosophy of trying to improve our current programming to add to the programming to reduce those leaving so they can stay in our district and be able to work with our great services that we will provide. So they all have this lens, which I think is outstanding. So we're looking forward to many good things. All right. Thank you for that. I'll move on to the second topic, which is, I'll get back into the screen share. Excuse me one second. And that is our, oh, that didn't come out too good. Sorry. Really not too fancy on the slides tonight, but our administrative retreat takes place Wednesday and Thursday of this week. And this is with our administrative council that's comprised of our central office team, as well as our principals, assistant principals, directors. All told, about 26, 27 of us will be working together on the 26th and 27th to really plot and plan for next year. So really taking the opportunity to debrief all the work that we've done this year, but with an eye to next year. So I just broke it down on our 2 days. It's a packed agenda. We have, it's an ambitious agenda, but we'll start out with the reflection activity and then bring it back to start building the strategic plan, work on our portrait of a graduate, which connects to the strategic plan. Then also look at our own strategic plan and our accomplishments and bringing it back to the end. And day 2, working on a coherence assessment tool, which is really important because, you know, as we look at and we've examined all the things that we're doing, it can become overwhelming with so many different items. And we really need to bring this into focus to maximize the opportunity we have to work together. And this tool will help us start to fine tune and really start to align to building the strategic plan. And Mary has a great section on MTSS. And then we'll work on our school district improvement plans as that ties into this. And then at the end of day 2, we'll work on our start of school year planning. So it's quite a bit. We also have plans throughout the summer to work different workshops for the evaluation, more of the nuts and bolts with our handbooks and the updates to Title IX and our bullying and harassment policy, as well as other items that will help us start the year running full speed. So that's it for the retreat on the 26th and 27th. So I want to say thank you to our team because, as Mary said, you know, they just wrapped up the year. They're finalizing, and then we have to jump into this because we really need the summer to lay this out so we can start very strong in August when our teachers come back. So, and if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Looks ambitious, but doable.
I'm excited. Okay. Thank you. That's the information from the superintendent. I kept it nice and short tonight.
And we move right into unfinished business. Number 1, hard of hearing program update.
Okay, great. Thank you. I want to bring this back. We touched on this in our last meeting, but at this time, this is an opportunity that is come together very well. And on the line is Caitlin Monahan, who has brought and throughout the year, we discussed how can we build a hard of hearing, a deaf hard of hearing program in our district. We have a number of students that receive services through the Clark School and looking for a way that we can actually provide those services in district and build a program. So Caitlin has been instrumental in working with us and going through what it would take to actually launch the program. And in its first year, the whole idea, and I'm going to turn this over to Caitlin shortly. The whole idea in the first year is to be able to move the contract that is out through Clark, move it back in district, and use that funding to supporting our students. So that way they would have somebody in our district working with our group of students that receive these services with an eye to building the program over the future that can entail everything from doing evaluations to others outside the district, as well as to potentially bringing students into our district to receive services. So it's quite an opportunity for us. We've been doing a lot of background work, and what I'd like to do after Caitlin's finished, I'd like to ask the school committee for their approval to move forward with the deaf and hard of hearing program. So Caitlin, if you're on the line, I'd like to turn this over to you and we'll go through the slides that you created.
I'm here.
All right.
All right.
Welcome.
Thanks, everybody. This has been a really exciting process. So I'm currently a teacher of the deaf or hard of hearing, as well as an educational audiologist. So I've been at this for quite a while. And looking at how Danvers has been trying to keep as much in-house and bring kids home and make it more of a community, initially my thoughts were, well, why don't we start providing those related services for kids who are currently in the Danvers school system, who are in some level of inclusion classrooms, to have those related service providers in-house and make it more of, a cohesive program of someone very understanding of the curriculum and how it's going to line up with their services and being able to communicate effectively with their teachers in those ways. So as Superintendent Bauer was saying, that the goal is to start small with this, providing services to the kids currently in Danvers, but then to build the program for students at the need of a learning center, essentially, to either if they're in Danvers or to contract in from other districts. Currently, right now, I think I get to this later, so I'll skip. I'll wait. So that's the goal, is to have these two separate programs that run concurrently, and once we get the whole program together, tying it all into one, so that there's one teacher who is the center of it, and the other related services providers focusing within that group. So the initially, like I said, the first step is to be in the classrooms, providing related services next year. But then the Learning Center and Mainstream program will be incorporated kindergarten through 5th grade. We have children who are preschoolers, and we have children who are middle school and high schoolers who receive services, and they'll continue to receive services. But the LC services are going to be driven towards kindergarten through 5th grade. So our plan is for next year is to provide the related services for the deaf or hard of hearing students in district. And also, as part of that, to really work to develop the programmatic structure of the more intensive program starting the next year. Year 2 would be to continue providing those related services, as well as adding that learning center in. And what's different about this learning center from other programs is that it's inside a general education school. So there's a lot of positives for students to have as much inclusion in these environments. So, learning how to go through the lunch line, go outside and play at recess. Those experiences don't necessarily exist when you're out of district. Can you go to the next slide, please? So again, everything is going to be in a general elementary school. So the kids who are currently in their inclusion classrooms will be in their inclusion classrooms. And then the learning center will be within general education school. So they'll all be in that, centered through that. So the reason that this really came forward for me was I did student teaching down at Clark School for hearing and speech down in Canton. And it's the only program really in Massachusetts that is strictly listening and spoken language. There's a spectrum of language modalities for all children, but for specifically to deaf and hard of hearing children, you have listening and spoken language, and then American Sign Language being on the two ends of the spectrum. And then within that spectrum are different levels and types of sign language that you add into it, and different levels of spoken language. So my program is going to focus on listening and spoken language. There won't be sign language used in this program. And so there's a huge need in the area for these students. It's also, the Clark School is amazing. It's wonderful. I have nothing but good things to say. It's all the way in Canton, and it's a specialty school. So it's a very small place without these opportunities necessarily to generalize the things that they've learned with peers. So, it will also be the only program, as far as I know, in Massachusetts that is K through 5 and gets those upper grades. Generally in the lower grade, it goes through the lower grades. I know there's a program in Linfield, and it's associated with Seeing Collaborative, but it's a bit of a different language, not modality, I'll think of the word. So these students, again, will receive their very specialized support in the Learning Center and then be able to generalize out. And the whole idea of the program for me is really built on the self-determination theory of building those base skills and then letting kids figure out what they can do and getting to autonomy so that they can apply that across other areas of their education and social life. It also gives them an amazing community to have.
Sorry, wrong slide.
That's okay.
Yep.
Sorry. So basically, so it's going to be the students within our district, and then outside of districts, we are going to contact other district student services departments, EMT, audiology departments, advocates, lawyer, whatever, for referrals starting in January 2025. So our goal is to be ready to go January 2025 to start accepting referrals and getting the program built for the fall.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Mhm.
Appreciate it. So at this time, like I said, I would love to bring this to school committee for approval and certainly bring it to the process. It's a program that there's a lot of great opportunities, and certainly being able to work in year one where we can build it small with our current the allocations, we can make it work financially, then look to build it too. So I'll leave it at that and see if you have any questions. I see a number of hands that are up.
Mr. Shannon, go first. You were ahead of me.
I didn't have my hands up.
I think you meant me. When I thank you, Mr. Cadmus. When I first heard about the potential of this program and that Caitlin was going to be on board, I was incredibly immediately interested and very excited because, in full disclosure, I have known Caitlin for many years as she is one of my neighbors. And with Caitlin knowing that I had a career in public education for a long time, we would have a lot of conversations about public education issues. And I can say wholeheartedly, without a doubt, Caitlin is an advocate for students that need services, without question. And her passion is clearly with the hard of hearing community. I think this is a fantastic idea, and it's incredibly fortuitous that all these pieces have come together. The fact that it's self-sustaining is fantastic. The fact that it can possibly generate additional revenue eventually, fantastic. But I think more importantly for us as a district is that we have better quality control over the service that our little ones are receiving, and the fact that these students can have more of a sense of community where they live. So for all of those reasons, and probably a lot that I've forgotten or I'm not speaking about, I support this this program. Thank you.
Yeah, I similar comments for me. I think when we were talking about bolstering the special ed program this year, we talked about trying to cut down on that out of district placements and keeping more kids in the district. And I think this is a great example of how to do it, especially, when I looked at that slide and it said that Canton, if we have somebody going from Danvers to Canton, that could be a 2-hour commute in the morning. Like that's no easy lift on a kid and their family too. So I think that, there's a number of different things that go into this, but I would fully support this. And just a quick question. I'm assuming because it said it would take place in one of the schools, we don't know quite where it's going to be at this point. Is that correct?
Right. There's still a lot of details. We have an idea where it may go. Don't want to speculate quite yet because there's some audiology equipment that can certainly be fine-tuned more in one building than the other. But, at least this year, being able to move around and service the students. And this is part of our work this year with Christina. I know she's still on the call, is to be able to build this up so that hopefully, by the time January rolls around, we're able to advertise that we're able to provide these services. So that's the idea, yes, is to eventually be able to house it in one place.
Great. Yeah, no, great job. And I would also support this. Thank you.
From my standpoint, there is nothing not to like about this. People have pointed out the good reasons for it. It sort of checks all the boxes in the sense that we want an innovative program and innovative programming. This is clearly that. It's going to help students within district, and it's potentially going to bring in students from outside the district, assuming we can execute on this. And I see no reason why we can't, Caitlin. I think this is an absolutely terrific idea. I'm 100% behind it.
Yeah, I definitely think that
any way that we can get the students in town to be around other kids from town. You know, what else does a kid want than to be able to open their door and be able to walk down the street and see their friends? And to take that ride to Canton is, I mean, I wouldn't want to do it regularly, never mind, you know, once a month, forget that. But you know, I coach basketball in the school that I work at, and we have a couple of different need programs in our school, and I let those kids come out. Anybody who plays basketball, everybody who comes out to play makes my team. And you know, they make huge strides when they're around kids that, you know, no matter what their need or what kinds of services they need, huge stride just being around other kids who live in the same areas. They can talk about things that they see every day. So I think this is a perfect opportunity for the district.
No. Chair, if Mr. Lopes, if it's okay, just add one more thing, and I know Caitlin pointed this out too, and this is by no means saying we're not satisfied with the services our students receive. That's by no means at all saying that with the Clark School. You know, when we've been in communication with them, and it's not about that. It's more about building our programming here and having an opportunity. And I think that needs to be noted publicly, and it is a great opportunity.
You ready for a motion, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I am. But before I take it, I'll just say I'm excited about this as well. I've had the pleasure of crossing paths with Caitlin a few times in Mike's neighborhood, so I understand their passion. I'm excited about, you know, increasing the learning time and eliminating commutes, and the economics of it, and the economics and the logistical part of it are just exciting across the board. So I'm excited to get a motion on this.
All right. So I will move, Mr. Chairman, that we approve the Hard of Hearing program as presented today by Superintendent Bauer and Caitlin Monahan.
Second.
Wow, I didn't even have to ask for a second. I will just ask Janet for a roll call vote, please.
Gabe Lopes,
Approve, or yes?
Eric Crane,
Yes.
Sean Doherty,
Yes.
Josh Kepnes,
Yes.
Mike Shannon.
Yes.
All right. Sounds like the motion is accepted. Congrats. Let's make it happen. Happy fingers. All right. That was unfinished business part one. The second part, I don't know if Mary and Dan got my message. I'll need the ability to present, but we're going to go to
You're
the
all set.
I'm all set. Okay, we're going to go into the superintendent evaluation. And Dan, while I get my presentation ready, why don't if there's anything you want to offer before, if you want to wait to see what your scores are, I leave it with you.
No, I just want to say thank you to the school committee for your support all throughout the year. And as like I said at the beginning of the year, to the greater Danvers community, it's been a lot of work, this transition. I have to thank our administrative team, our central office team, as well as our faculty, staff, and our students. So it's been an outstanding year. But I will say that as much as we've had a great year, the real work is going to begin this year as well, knowing we need to move things forward. And I think we did a good job in terms of building a base so we can do just that. So again, thank you for everybody's support.
I want to make sure I share the right screen so I share presentation. That's screen 3, 2. Okay, this is always the fun part. Do you folks see like a full screen presentation?
Yes.
Yes, you do.
Oh, all right, fantastic. Why don't we go ahead to it, and at the end of it, we can take some questions. It originally was not intended to be a PowerPoint, but Mr. Bauer's standards of presentation are way through the roof. So I stole a local. I didn't steal it. I asked Dan to send me a agenda item, but just 1 second. I'm just opening up another item here, so I have some additional notes that I want to cover. Okay, superintendent assessment of Daniel Bauer and Mr. Daniel Bauer in 2024. Let's go on to the next slide here, if it allows me to. All right, agenda. We're going to look at the 4 standards and score each one of these categories. Just for everyone's reference, the participants in this assessment were just Mr. Crane, Mr. Kepnes, and myself. Mike Shannon and Sean, newly elected, didn't have to participate this year, but we look forward to having them next year. This information will be made public. What we're going to walk through is a high-level assessment and score with the conclusion, but the full details of the assessment will be packaged up and made available to everyone or anyone who requests it in the public. All right, jumping straight into standard 1, instructional leadership, provided Mr. Bauer a score of proficient. So Dan, he ensured that instructional staff designed effective and rigorous standards-based units. He maintained high expectations for teaching and learning and utilized diverse methods for student assessments. Mr. Bauer effectively supervised and evaluated staff, aligning with state regulations and contract provisions. His data-informed decision-making skills were proficient, promoting the learning and growth of all students and the success of all staff. So that's the first assessment there. And again, the score is proficient. And just for your reference, the scores range from unsatisfactory all the way up to exemplary. Proficient is just below exemplary. Again, it's just been a year and we'll summarize that. But just so people can understand the scale, as proficient is a pretty good score. It's actually a pretty excellent score. Standard 2, management and operations. Mr. Bauer excelled in management and operations. He developed and executed effective plans and operational systems to address a full range of safety, health, emotional, and social needs. Mr. Bauer implemented a cohesive approach to human resources management, ensuring high quality and effective practices. He efficiently utilized scheduling and management information systems and complied with state and federal laws, school committee policies, and ethical guidelines. Dan's budgeting and fiscal management skills supported the district's vision and goals, leading to a safe, efficient, and effective learning environment. And anyone feel free to stop me with any questions as we go through this, or again, we can go all the way into conclusions. For standard 3, family and community engagement, we provided Dan with a score of exemplary here, and that was pretty unanimous across the 3 school committee members. Dan's performance in family and community engagement was exemplary. He attended numerous school-based events, regularly visited schools, and collaborated with various PACs. He also held several superintendent coffees. Dan engaged with community stakeholders by attending meetings with Rotary, Lions Club, and human rights and inclusion groups. He maintained monthly meetings with our own Jasmine Ramon, the head of our human rights and inclusion committee, and supported culturally responsive work. Dan ensured continuous collaboration with families to support student learning and development. He facilitated CPAC forums and provided updates on cyber safety and health. His communication efforts were regular, two-way, and culturally proficient, ensuring families were well informed and respected. In regards to professional culture, the score here again is proficient. Dan fostered a strong professional culture within the district. He committed to high standards of service, teaching, and learning, promoting a culture of continuous improvement. Dan ensured cultural proficiency by enabling staff and students to interact effectively in a diverse environment. His communication skills were exemplary, demonstrating strong interpersonal, written, and verbal communication. And Dan also nurtured a culture of reflective practice and continuous learning among staff. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the incredible contribution of a first-year superintendent and the impact that he had in our teachers' negotiations this year. So Dan's contribution to the teachers' union negotiations were particularly notable. He played a key role in the negotiation team, offering solutions and stepping up as a leader when needed. His collaborative approach and ability to remain calm under pressure helped to successfully complete the negotiations, earning mutual respect from both the administrative team and the teachers union. This experience highlighted his ability to manage conflict constructively and build consensus, further promoting a positive and collaborative district-wide culture. All right, last slide here. I'm not going to read this because I have something that's a little bit more of a mash of, this will be official here, but what I'm going to put in the actual report is a little bit more, a little bit of verbatim from Mr. Crane, from Mr. Kepner, and myself. Obviously, there are some comments here that summarize those comments, but I'm going to take a shot at kind of combining all of our comments into one, and then I'll allow folks to comment after. So what I'll say is Dan's effort and work this year as a superintendent have been very strong. He's made strides in improving the district, focusing on a safe and supportive learning environment. The district has rolled out new learning materials at the elementary level and initiated hiring efforts to make staff more representative of the student population. Future improvement plans should include measurable tactics for clear evaluation in regards to, a representative student population and what Danvers looks like today. We talked about Dan's playing a key role in the teachers' negotiations. Again, he facilitated a successful negotiation, working very collaboratively with not only our staff, members of the school committee like myself, but the town manager and also our assistant superintendent, Mrs. Werner. Dan took over during a challenging time for our district. His presence in schools, attendance at events, and use of social media positively impacted the community, helping to, in short, rebuild our reputation. He has met expectations as a first-year superintendent and exceeded them in community engagement. Dan has also built strong relationships with his team, including Mary Warners, Pamela Crum, and Kim Bevan, and district principals. He empowers them, provides positive feedback, and involves them in key initiatives. He credits team efforts rather than taking individual credit, earning mutual respect even during tense negotiations. Dan's technical leadership skills will continue to develop, but his sincere concern and respect for people are evident. His authenticity and emotional intelligence will foster loyalty and hard work from our administrators, teachers, and students, leading to district-wide improvement. And that concludes my assessment here, along with the words. I mean, again, all of this will be made available to everyone, but I will open it up for comments or responses from anyone on the call.
I'll jump in if it's all right, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
So first of all, a little bit about the tool. I've never loved the tool that we're asked to use to evaluate the superintendent, because there's so many things that we're supposed to try and evaluate that we may not always get to see. So when I looked at the overall performance, I'm looking at it in the context of the evidence that Dan has provided, as much as I can possibly observe, but understanding that it is an imperfect tool. So that's the first thing. Secondly, I looked at, particularly this year, it's what were my expectations for the first year. So I'm not evaluating the superintendent against someone who's been doing this 20 years. I'm looking at, what do I see and what were my expectations as a first year superintendent? And as far as I'm concerned, you knocked it out of the park, Dan. And then the final piece is sort of trying to find the right way to articulate this. Maybe I'll come back to it. So basically, when I look at the key things that you did, I agree with the family and community engagement, tremendous strength. Even before you were officially working for us, you were trying to become part of the community, get the lay of the land, attend our meetings and attend other meetings of the local government to understand how things work in Danvers. And I would imagine that really helped you in the process from the very beginning. But your commitment to the district was evident right from the beginning. Your overall communications, and I would also put that in terms of judgment. And that's really, it seems to be one of the tough parts, whether you're on school committee or as an incoming superintendent. What's the right amount of communication? What's the right amount to share with people to keep people informed, but at the same time using discretion where necessary? And that's kind of an art. And I think you demonstrated throughout the year that you have tremendous sense of how to handle that. And finally, people don't understand necessarily what a challenge negotiations are generally. And you negotiated, not alone, but still with 4 different bargaining units and got them all concluded with fair and reasonable and affordable contracts. And again, lots of help, coming in different ways, but help which you embraced and really set up a collaborative scheme to allow a lot of us to try and help out. And I think the results speak for themselves. And I think that's a tremendous accomplishment for a superintendent, especially in your first year. So you should be very pleased and proud with your performance. I know, as one school committee member, and I think listening to the overall evaluation, I think we're really all pleased. Nobody's perfect, but frankly, there's nothing negative to say about the job you did this year, Dan. So I really, really appreciate what you bring to this district. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
If I may, I just with my daughter being in first grade at Highlands, I think she recognized you faster than she recognizes me some afternoons when I come to pick her up at school. And one of the things that really stood out to me on the community involvement side, aside from me running the park program here in town, and I know you came around right away and wanted to see what everything was about last summer, but on Memorial Day, we went through town and almost every student said, "Hey, Mr. Bauer, how are you doing?" And that really stood out to me. For someone who hasn't even been in town a year, it was amazing to see that many kids knew you and respected you enough to want you to see them. So I definitely appreciate how you put yourself out there every day on that aspect of it.
And Mr. Chair, if I could throw some comments in there as well. I would agree with what Sean said as well, as far as the community engagement goes, whether it's playing kickball with the kids or reading to the kids or just being overall present. And I hear it anecdotally from both of my kids that are in the school that Dan's very present and they all know who he is. But your score of proficient is very good. And for the community that thinks that everything should be, if somebody has an expectation that everything should be exemplary, it's not realistic. And I think proficient is a very, very good score. And I think you should be very, very happy with that overall rating. A couple things that I commented on was being part of the contract negotiation team and sitting with you on that through the several months of meetings along with the others on the committee. It was impressive to see you work, and particularly getting the contract negotiation over the goal line in the last 5.5-hour meeting, I think, where you really just kind of took reins, showed tremendous leadership and got the deal done. And I think it was very impressive just to watch you in action to do that. But also your communication, not only with the community, but also with the school committee. Your communication is very good, and I would say stellar as far as the amount of details and everything that's being shared with us. So overall, Dan, I was very happy with your first year. I think you should be very proud of what you've done.
Mr. Shannon.
When I made the decision to run for school committee, there were several factors that I considered, and one of the more significant factors was the fact that all the pieces were in place, and one of those pieces was Dan Bauer. So, to be able to work with leadership like this, a school committee like this, building-based leaders like we have, really helped me to make my decision to get involved. And I'm looking forward, and I know we all are, to working with you for the next year. One piece of advice, though, I'd just be on your best all the time, because Sean and I are now on the job. So, there's no slacking. But nice job. Excellent job.
All right. I mean, you heard my assessment, but big thing for me, stepping out of the position of chair, because again, I do have 2 kids in the district. Dan, when I see you at the schools, you just look like you're having a great time. And it goes to that old saying, if you love what you do, you won't work a day in your life. So seeing that the kids can read it, you know, I mean, a couple parents on here already mentioned how the kids all know you, but the kids can smell it coming from a mile away, and you just exude this genuine, you know, joy and love for what you do. So, you know, thank you. We're lucky to have you. But I will say, as we all know, every day brings on a new challenge. I think this district, especially being a resident here for almost 10 years, has seen the worst of circumstances that are unimaginable. And to be where we are today, it's like we have to continuously raise the bar. I think we've come such a long way in a short amount of time. But you know, I just knock on wood here and just hope that, you know, with this district, we continue to get better and better and better every day, not every month, not every year, but with the team you're putting together, with the support staff around you, it's let's keep building and let's keep going, because we could have this, you know, kumbaya conversation today and it can all blow up tomorrow. So, you know, enjoy the good times and be ready, because I'm sure some more challenges will come our way. But hopefully with the infrastructure, you know, the things that you're putting in place, we'll be better prepared for it. Any comments, Mr. Bauer? It's hard to speak on your own assessment, but
well, it truly is. And, you know, certainly I appreciate the support and I appreciate the feedback. And, you know, our goal is to be better in year 2 than we were year 1. And knowing that this job is not one that it's too big to do alone. And certainly there's so many people that have given so much and continue to give so much. And a lot of my team, I can't say my team, our team is on the call here tonight that, you know, through negotiations, worked tirelessly behind the scenes and doing so much work to improve our district. I agree 100%, Chair Lopes, is that, you know, we can't sit on the laurels and say, well, that's great, because there's a lot of work to do. As I said in our findings, you know, there's a lot of great things that are in place, but no, we need to continue to push forward. And I know we have great people. We have a great community. And I just want to say thank you for your support, and certainly very humbled. But, you know, we do need to look forward to keep going and improving. So, but thank you to the committee again. And thank you to all the support that we've received this year and will continue to receive.
all right, shall we move to new business, the monthly budget report? I didn't leave anyone out, did I? Okay, good.
Okay, so I'm here this evening to talk about the monthly budget report. I shared with you a tally of sort of where things were through the month of May, as people have said in various ways, and you know, talking about different circumstances. It has been quite a year. So that has been true financially as well on the budget side for the district. It's been a pretty dynamic process as we have seen the challenges that we have seen grow over the last couple of years, particularly with out-of-district tuition costs going up and the associated transportation costs going up. It's also manifested itself in other ways, transportation wise. I think some of the supply chain issues with our school vehicles is catching up with us. So some of our vehicles have required more repairs and maintenance than maybe historically that has been needed. And we've had to actually rent vehicles from our bus contractor this year because all of our buses were not able to perform the routes that we needed them to be able to do. So it has been challenging, but on the other side, we've also had some good support from the state in the form of some reimbursement money for some of the transportation costs that we have incurred, particularly homeless transportation, and for some of our emergency assistance students. That money has been coming in and will play a large role in my ability to close out the books for the fiscal year. We also did apply for and receive reserve relief from Circuit Breaker, which means that they are sort of prepaying some of our FY25 circuit breaker revenues so that if we need that money to close out FY24, it will be available to us. And we are in the relatively fortunate position of having circuit breaker reserve funds that have been carried over from a prior year, as well as some of our ESSER grant money remaining. So I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to pay all our bills and close everything out appropriately. It's always a challenge right up until the very end. And so Assistant Superintendent Wormers and I have been reviewing grants and making sure that we are fully expending all the resources that we have available to us. You know, if a second professional development session wasn't possible, then we're able to amend the grant budget and identify other expenses that we're able to move over from our operating budget into the grant. And that every little bit of that helps. So we've been kind of exhaustively combing through all of those things as well to make sure that we are making use of absolutely every dollar that we have available to us. Does anyone have any questions about anything in particular in the report or anything else to do with the financial side of our operations?
I have a comment, if I could, Mr. Chairman. I had the chance to work with Pam and observe Pam working with Dan and with Kim Bevins and Mary as we were going through, particularly the teacher negotiations, but also the aides negotiations. And you know, I know you had sort of a year under your belt, kind of, sort of last year, but still, you know, you took on a really important role this year, really grabbing a hold of the financial operations. And it's clear to me what a strong and deep understanding you have of how things work and how things have to work. And, you know, I want to speak to that and also the dedication that you have shown. I know that you probably had some sleepless nights when we were going through negotiations, trying to figure out where this was going to land and how we would pay for things. And I know you take it to heart. And I just want to say that, you know, as one school committee member, and I'm sure the others join me, and Josh knows this from what he observed too, what, you know, how deeply you care about your work and care about this district. And both you and Kim and Mary, I know, are right hands for Dan as we try and get things done. So your work is much appreciated, Pam.
Thank you.
Yeah, I echoed that, Pam. Thank you for your service. It's commendable. But seems like you've settled right in. I mean, I know you were, you know, taking this on full time just last year, if I'm not mistaken. Correct? It's been two years now, and you haven't missed a beat. I love it.
Thank you, Gabe.
All right. Sorry. Going back to the agenda. All right. School committee meeting dates 24, 25. I like to say tentative school committee meeting dates, right? We can squeeze in. And I mean, Dan, did you want to walk through this, or do you want me to kind of, do we have to vote on it, or?
We don't have to vote on this. I think it's part of the transition just to pick, you know, dates. And I think we did that. We basically said the continue to meet the second Monday of every month, but every once in a while there are some conflicts or whatever. So and like you say, these are all tentative. Things can change, but no vote is really necessary, Gabe.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll echo that. I mean, I like that we have an in-person and a virtual meeting here. And I think I'm going to work really hard with Superintendent Bauer to see what we can accomplish in one meeting a month. And that'll always depend on the agenda. So you won't always see a 2-meeting month agenda, but you know, we'll just take it as it goes. But it looks like a good enough plan. What I guess my one question is, I think, Dan, we have to work on it, is a school committee retreat day. I don't know
Yes.
if we've started tossing that out there, but we will figure that out.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Next agenda item. Holton Richmond Program of Studies for our first reading.
Great. Thank you, Chair Lopes. I would like to bring in, we have Ellen Furick here, who is our curriculum director for Holton Richmond Middle School. Principal Colantoni is actually out of town. He's probably headed back. I think he's back in district tomorrow. But Ellen and the team did a great job in terms of their program of studies. So I'd like to bring this forward for a first reading tonight. This slide itself just reflects the memo that is in your Google folder with any substantive changes for the program of studies. And I know that Ellen and Adam and the team, they've worked really hard on this. So I'm going to turn this over to Ellen.
Sure. I will just highlight the changes for you. Obviously, you have the complete program of studies in your folder, but to save you a little bit of reading, I'll just kind of highlight the major changes that you'll see for 24-25. Probably the most significant change is the descriptions for grades 6, 7, and 8 language arts as we shift away from the Teachers College units of study curriculum in those classes. We are actually field testing 2 different curriculum programs next year. So for the first roughly 12 weeks of the school year, students will be engaging in the fish tank curriculum as we field test that. And then up until about February vacation, Thanksgiving to February roughly, we will be field testing the curriculum from Open Up Resources called EL. And so we wanted the program, because that's such a significant chunk of time, we wanted that to be reflected in the program of studies. Now that the DARE curriculum has moved down to grade 5, we just deleted that from the program of studies. We've been working a lot this year as a faculty, and certainly with our building representatives, and then also through the Joint Labor Committee that came out of through the negotiation process to really revise our description of RISE block to reflect a new structure, new focus, new instructional priorities. So you'll find that in the revised program of studies. Another change that's going into effect next year, and you'll see number 4 and number 6 actually kind of are counterparts to one another, in that the world language classes in grade 6 are now only every other day classes. Most students will then have the WIN block on the alternating days. So we wanted to have that reflected. Number 5, after all these years, we've had Project Hawk since I was in the classroom many, many years ago, but we've never included it in the program of studies. So it seemed appropriate to have a section about our social emotional activity block at the middle school. And finally, with the change in our extracurricular, or I'm sorry, not our extracurricular, but our exploratory programming, no longer having the public speaking and drama classes, we removed those course descriptions. Even though we didn't run computer science classes this year, because we weren't able to hire a qualified staff member, those courses had already been in the approved program of studies before we made the determination that we could not adequately run those programs. So we didn't need to make a change there since they were in the 23-24 program of studies. And we're very excited to be offering those courses again next year. Any questions?
To the chair, if that's okay, Chair Lopes. Just Ellen, if you wouldn't mind, and this might be a question, but the WIN block is significant work that you put into place, because a lot of the feedback from the data indicated, another means of supporting our students, and how can we do that within the existing schedule? So apologize if somebody else had this question, but I think it's worth noting, and I saw from behind the scenes the work that the team has been putting into this, and actually a lot of the work that went into the last 2 optional PD days at the end of school. So if you wouldn't mind elaborating some on that, because that really some direct feedback on how can we provide more structures to support our students.
Absolutely. So through some ongoing committee work that we did this year, one of the things we determined was that it really was important to provide additional support, particularly to our 6th graders, to help them with the transition to middle school. I believe one parent told Mr. Colantoni at one point that they felt as though their student had gone from elementary school to college when they made the jump to middle school. So we really felt like we needed to do a better job of transitioning students. And we thought that the WIN block being so successful at the elementary school is really just the thing to provide students with some really data-driven, directed support around their content. So it's really, it's not homework help. It's not sort of executive function. It's really driven by the data through things like MCAS and iReady data and other in-house assessments that really direct us towards seeing that students need some tier 2 intervention around academic skills and standards. And so in particular, over the 2 optional professional development days, as Superintendent Bauer mentioned, we had a group of about 18 staff members who participated in those optional days just to really flesh out what the WIN block exactly is going to look like. They put a plan together for those opening days and weeks of school to first give the 6th graders a really healthy orientation to Holton Richmond and to middle school, and to really put some good study habits and study skills in place. And then once we have the data from, again, MCAS and last year's MCAS, and then our fall administration of the iReady tests, we'll have that data to then put some plans in place and determine exactly what students need in terms of either skill remediation or skill extension and development for students who are able to extend their learning.
Any other questions or comments?
Just one question, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, sure.
Ellen, on the movement of the DARE curriculum to 5th grade, I don't have an up or down feeling about it, but I'm curious as to what the what's the basis of that? Is the current thinking now it's better to do that earlier? Because I know we've had the DARE curriculum at the middle school 20 years or more. What's behind that? Just curious, really.
To be honest, I'm not really sure. I think that was a decision that Officer Skane made, or probably in conjunction with the other SROs in town. So I'm not really sure exactly if that was something more systematically with the DARE curriculum kind of nationwide, if they've shifted that education to be for younger grades. So I couldn't answer that for you.
So
Sorry.
that's really from the police standpoint?
I believe so. Yes.
Through the chair to Ms. Ferrick, I'm just wondering what were the shortcomings identified with the teacher's college curriculum that prompted us to want to pilot Fish Tank and the Open Up resources?
It's very high in engagement. We were really pleased with certainly the reading engagement, but it was a little bit lacking in some of the skill development, both in reading and in writing. With the Department of Education really placing a lot of emphasis and really encouraging districts to adopt what they really point us towards as high quality instructional materials. Frankly, the Teachers College.
Oh no.
Must be using a
I think
Chromebook.
Ellen froze. You froze, Ellen.
Oh no.
Oh, you're back. You're back.
Okay.
Just about to hit the spot where Mr. Shannon was asking about.
Oh, sorry about that. So basically, the Teachers College curricula just no longer was meeting our needs. It wasn't strong enough in skill development for reading or for writing. And it also no longer meets the Department of Education's criteria for high quality instructional materials.
Thank you.
I guess I was going to ask a question about there, but Mike took it. I think my only question is, I mean, I know it's being taught in fifth grade with younger children, but wouldn't the risk be higher with being surrounded with older kids who may have a higher and a more probable opportunity to run into, as kids get older, less parent supervision, so drug awareness and mediation is all there. I mean, I see a bunch of other stuff, but I'm just really curious about the DARE thing. I just think that's something that maybe we should be looked at again in regards to, because the younger children, again, you can put that, just say no component there, but as they get older and start being more independent, would love to have some reinforcement. And I don't know if there's something else in the I'm not saying that's bad. This is just an opinion, but
well, I will add that our health curriculum, our health education curriculum that students are exposed to provides a really nuanced and age-appropriate set of skills for students around decision-making, refusal skills, things like that. So it's certainly not sort of fifth grade DARE and done, because they're consistently not just receiving messaging, but really, really strong skill development through health education.
All right, thank you for that. My next one was Project Hawk. Is that fairly new with this administration, or is this something that's continued?
That's our anti-bullying program. It started as the Olveus program, which was an external program, maybe a dozen years ago, whenever the law went into effect. And then we transitioned to a homegrown program not too many years. We had Olveus in place for maybe 4 or 5 years. And then for the last several years, we've had a homegrown program.
Okay. And I'll say this with the compliment as well, because positive sentiment coming out of the middle school this last year has been there. And I was wondering if there's anything specific besides some of the changes in administration and the addition of, like, I guess you call them cool down rooms, or I apologize. I cannot remember what you call that room where kids go to kind of decompress, and they're that wonderful teacher in that room that kind of helps out with that. But I was wondering if there have been any specific changes to Project Hawk that maybe should be called out. Is she frozen again?
I think she's frozen again.
Bummer. That was a great question. I can't repeat that. Okay.
Mr. Lopes, I think it was called the Opportunity Room,
Opportunity Room.
Remember,
That
which
is,
I think was fantastic.
That is
exactly.
Yes. And I think I guess Ellen had to hop off, and we can certainly dig in more in terms of the DARE. And I know, I've seen the decision-making process at the high school level in terms of items that were crossed over with the DARE program, and as well as the middle school. But happy to follow up a little bit more on that.
Sorry about that.
Oh, you're back, Ellen. Okay.
I'm back. I don't know what happened.
Did you hear the question?
I know. Last thing I heard, you were asking about the Opportunity Room.
There you go.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think they covered that. So I wouldn't worry about it. But is there anything of note that changed with Hawk, with like the new administration and all the good stuff that I think happened over the last year?
Well, for the past, so 24-25 will be probably the third year that we're using the Restore 360, the Restorative Circles curriculum for Project Hawk. But we are also looking to add some more explicit direct instruction around the 5 social emotional learning competencies as well.
Okay. And I guess the question goes back to Mr. Bauer. It's like, obviously middle school, I think we all know, is like the, it just seems to be the toughest age group, right? Because you have different kids, different neighborhoods all coming together, and it's like the perfect storm. But I'm wondering if any of that can be emulated in the elementary school as well. I think we're hearing more and more about issues at the elementary school around, bullying. Maybe it's not as programmatic or as intense, but I think there's some things that are still going there. And it's just something to look at in regards to potentially a pilot. Maybe the instruction in the elementary schools. The SEL stuff I know is great, but I'm wondering if there's anything specific and explicit. Love the notion of the rise block. 25 minutes. Just seems that there seems to be a lot of like self-awareness, intervention, SEL, and I don't think any of this is duplicative, but would you say there's at least an hour or two a week of some kind of program where kids are reflecting and getting help? And, Ellen, I don't know if you have a number around it, but
So
how many
the
hours a
Rise
week do you
block
think
is
it can be?
25 minutes, and
Mhm.
then the SEL curriculum is going to turn out to be, because we're making a little bit of a shift there, that will be 30 minutes once a week, 3 out of the 4 weeks a month, roughly. So yeah, there is roughly an hour a week where students are either doing some extension of learning, reteaching. So they're really different. So the Rise block and Project Hawk chunks of time are really different in their purpose.
Yeah, so I see Rise, Hawk, and Win, and they seem to be complementary and take up
Yes.
different blocks. And is that pretty standard around? Are we doing something extra? I mean, if it's working, let's not stop. But it just feels like we're doing a lot. Not that I'm complaining. I just would
I
love to
think
know
the
Derek
only
thoughts.
thing, and this is part of what came out of the optional professional development last week, was to really delineate for 6th grade the difference between Win block and Rise block. Because for a long time, where we only had Rise block, we were kind of trying to do within Rise in 25 minutes what we really needed 50 minutes for. So that was one thing that did come out of the work, was coming up with a really clear definition of what Win is going to look like versus what Rise is going to look like. Where 7th and 8th grade is going to continue to just have the Rise block.
Thank you for that, and
Sure.
that concludes my long list of questions around that. Are there any other comments? Okay, do I have a motion?
Move to approve the middle school program of studies for a first reading.
I second the motion.
All right, Janet, let's do a roll call.
Gabe Lopes,
Yes.
Eric Crane,
Yes.
Sean Doherty,
Yes.
Josh Kepnes,
Yes.
Mike Shannon.
Yes.
All right, none are opposed. The motion carries. All right, 2024-25 school calendar. Mr. Bauer, over to you.
Yes, sir. So through contractual negotiations with the Danvers Teachers Association, throughout the negotiations, there was a move to really gain more traction at the start of the school year. And that was really the genesis for this proposal. And it took some time as we started negotiations in January. By the time we finalized our negotiations, we were into June. So, and as we went through this, it took a few different iterations, but I think the bottom line is wanting to start the school year right after Labor Day and hit the ground running and traditionally we've had 3 in-service days for our staff. So we want to compress that to 2, which would take place this year on the 27th and 28th. I think 20th and 20, yeah. Right. Anyway, we wanted to take the 3rd professional development day and move that later to the year. So it gives us an opportunity to reflect mid-year. How are we doing? And if there's any course corrections we need to make on the work. So we really haven't had that opportunity. So the union agreed to that, as well as moving one of the 3 early release days to midpoint in the year. And I think that's important as well, because traditionally we've started off with 3 in-service days. That includes the Tuesday after Labor Day. So that really is a gap. Then we started, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday would be the early release. So the new calendar would look like before Labor Day, the teachers would be in Wednesday, Thursday. We're off Friday, then Labor Day. Then we start school. The first day of school would be the Tuesday after Labor Day. That would be a half day. Wednesday would be a half day. Then we move into full days. We would take that 3rd early release and move that to the Friday before December break. In a lot of ways, that seemed appealing because that allows families and staff, to get a jump if they have any plans at that time. And then moving that 3rd professional development day, I think, is really important because that gives us a chance, again, midstream to review everything that we've done so far and to make any adjustments that we need to make. And I think that's going to be really important. But I think as well as gaining more traction to the beginning of the school year. So I know it's a change, and we did publish our calendar as we do typically early in the spring. But through negotiations until we really were able to finalize, and I did put it in my last update as we were about to finalize the memorandum of understanding that, ultimately the changes would come forward to school committee again for an adjustment on the schedule and the calendar for the next school year. And this is a negotiated setup in terms of the professional development days. It's in the teacher's contract. And we feel really good about this. And I can't take all the credit. There's a lot of credit, and I know on this call, and Mary did a great job putting together what it would look like. She really leads a lot of our professional development and making that work with our curriculum directors to ensure that our staff has enough time to prepare to start hit the ground running once school began. And we feel really good about that piece, and also really hitting that Tuesday after Labor Day and starting classes. And again, there's some other considerations too. And Josh, I don't know, I don't want to put you on the spot, but Josh played a big part in this as well in terms of working together on this.
Yeah, happy to comment on that. Thanks, Dan. I supported this as well. I think from a perspective of having kids in the district and trying to gain traction with 3 different half days from Wednesday, Thursday, Friday was always a little bit challenging. But also from a parent's perspective, I think it does relieve some of that burden on trying to find, with that extra half day, and how do you find care for that early release. So I do think that, there might be some hiccups in this because we did release the original calendar earlier, and this has been updated. But in the long run, I think starting on that Tuesday and Wednesday with the half days, and then getting the kids really into the full swing of things on that Thursday and Friday, I think is a good move. And I think in the long run, it's really going to pay off.
And one thing I'd like to add too, and certainly it's not perfect in terms of being able to launch just because of the timing with the negotiations, right? And certainly not able to formally produce this because the negotiations ended as they did in June. But also knowing that, if there are plans and things that were made in advance, that the school administrations will work with families to make this adjustment for this year. Certainly to hold harmless if there's travel plans that may need to be arranged to work around this for families. So, we don't want to put a burden on anybody, but I agree with you, Josh, in the long run, I think this will help both educators and families get a good jump on the year, but also give us an opportunity to really do some good work that 3rd day in the middle of the year.
All right, any other comments or questions?
I think we all got an email from a parent who was concerned about his student, either having to change their vacation plans or she'd miss her first day in middle school. And I guess I don't know that there'll be that many parents in that situation. I do think that at the very least, the hold harmless piece, where maybe we don't count students who are in that situation, we don't count that as an absence, and let them start the year with a clean slate anyway. That's probably a reasonable middle approach to take, I would think.
I'd agree, Eric.
All right. So we have a motion to approve the revision to the school calendar.
Motion to approve the 24 to 25 school calendar.
Second.
Roll call.
Gabe Lopes,
Yes.
Eric Crane,
Yes.
Sean Doherty,
Yes.
Josh Kepnes,
Yes.
Mike Shannon.
Yes.
All right. The motion carries. All right. So order of business, Mr. Secretary.
All right. Got to make sure I get all the right dates here. I move to approve and release the minutes from the June 10th and June 14th regular meetings, and approve but not release the minutes from the June 10th executive session.
Second.
Janet, if you please.
Gabe Lopes,
Approve.
Eric Crane,
Yes.
Sean Doherty,
Yes.
Josh Kepnes,
Yes.
Mike Shannon.
Yes.
All right, the motion carries. And the consent agenda. Is this back to you, Mr. Secretary?
It can be anybody, but I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Janet, please.
Gabe Lopes,
Approve.
Eric Crane,
Approved.
John Dougherty,
Approved.
Josh Kepnes,
Approved.
Mike Shannon.
Yes.
All right. The motion carries again. All right. On to communications. NEC.
The only thing with the NEC is they're moving along with the renovations of the Kevin O'Grady School, so it's moving accordingly. There's a break this summer for the Board of Directors meetings. We have worked, as we know, with the increase of the tuition. Pam Crum's done a nice job. We've been able to work that in. And finally, working together with the North Shore group of superintendents to analyze the transportation. We're going through that analysis to hopefully be able to consolidate the transportation in the following year, which will be a huge move for all of us.
Awesome. Thank you. Legislation.
I did hear from Representative Kearns today, and I'll go through it pretty quickly. She notes that we are putting out a lot of legislation, 7 major bills since mid-May, plus the August 10th, 11th sales tax holiday weekend bill, some important bills, a maternal health bill that will the idea is to reduce racial inequities in maternal outcomes. The bill expands access to midwifery care and community-based services. And she notes that Danvers public health nurse Judith Ryan does a great job with other North Shore public nurses with the home visiting program to make sure mothers know where to get support. And she's sure our school nurses encounter situations where families might need postpartum support. And this bill will help with all of those things. There is a housing bond bill 3 weeks ago, which should be helpful to people, including families, educators, and support staff seeking to rent or buy a home. And there's a new water bill that will be coming out that will allow potentially towns in the Ipswich River watershed like Danvers to participate with the MWRA. So nothing directly educational, although things that will all touch on the quality of public health in our community.
Awesome. Subcommittee updates. I will just jump in and say on the Danvers Human Rights and Inclusion, I had a nice long conversation with Miss Jasmine Ramon in regards to potentially maybe sharing delegates, having a back and forth. I think it's a lot to ask of our school committee members to, do 2 meetings a month and then go sit in a Human Rights and Inclusion Committee meeting for a few hours on a weeknight as well. I know, some of us don't have a problem with it, but others, being parents and having many things to do and other personal things, I just think it's a lot. And I would like to see more cross participation if possible. That way we can get live updates as well as go out as well. And I would also like to maybe work out a way next year where more of us can expose ourselves to different groups. And I don't know, historically, Mr. Crane, you've been on this committee for years.
Mm-hmm.
I personally have not been exposed to all the subcommittees, and I'd love an opportunity, but I don't know if it works better where people feel like if you're all in on one, you get into the rhythm of it and you actually accomplish more. And I think that's an open discussion for all of us to have. We've
done it because it was sort of the way it was done, and generally people could do it kind of fit into their schedule. But I see nothing wrong with, anyone can attend any meeting, anytime, really. But if we formalize a little bit so that we all get exposed to the different community organizations, I see nothing wrong with that, and certainly nothing in our what's what I'm looking for. There's no reason why you can't do it that way. And where we're liaisons as opposed to necessarily active, certainly not voting members of these other committees, I don't think it would impact, like if you don't go to every meeting of a particular group and if you rotate, I don't think it would impact our contribution. I think that's fine.
All right. Well, all right. Something to figure out before the, maybe during the retreat, we could have a conversation about that.
Yep.
When I hear retreat, I hear the woods and animals and
trust balls. Yeah, trust balls. Yeah.
Obstacle courses.
Yeah.
But All right. Okay, so we'll go across the board. So I mentioned human rights and inclusion. I don't know if anyone else has anything on that. CPAC, have there been any meetings? I mean, I guess I'll just open it up to anyone who's gone to meetings.
I'm happy to speak to CPAC.
Yeah, sure.
You know, I'm going to reach out to them shortly to see if we can have a midsummer summit now that Christina's coming aboard, and she'll take the reins and run with the CPAC moving forward. But certainly it was a great year and a lot of good forums that we had, and I've come a long way. So looking forward to doing that with CPAC. So I'll reach out to the board before July 1 just to see if they have time in July and set up some time with Christina to sit down and start to plot and plan for next year.
Yeah, no, and as discussed at the last meeting a few weeks ago, I had been in contacts with where Josh was with negotiations. I've been in touch with Susie, who was the chairperson at the time. I'm not sure if she's moving in or moving out, but they know that I'm interested in attending as much as possible as well.
Curriculum and equity.
For that subcommittee, we'll talk about that in our retreat in terms of setting up the formats for next year. But you know, Mary did a great job. A lot of the work informing the committee, some of it happened within the subcommittee, but some of it was at different times too. So we'll look forward to working at that on the retreat.
All right. Policy, we haven't had one in a while. Dan, we'll just have to maybe cover that in the retreat.
Yeah, same thing. And knowing that you played a big role in making some substantive changes to a few policies this year. And we'll again work on organizing that. You know, how do we want the frequency? We tried to go every other month as best we could, so we can look at that if that's the format we want to continue. But again, we just, you know, last month put the actually it was this month, right? June. It's hard to believe we had a meeting earlier. The school safety cameras, that policy, the bullying prevention. And then way back when we started to work on some of our other policies about bullying prevention, as well as our wellness policy.
Any updates on safety, Dan?
So we had our final meeting at the end of the school year, and we're going to continue the committee. We did a survey in terms of frequency of the meetings and inviting other stakeholders. We will continue next year. It may be more in a quarterly format. But there may be some more depth in terms of where we go in terms of analysis. But I think the overall feeling was that it did a good job in terms of increasing communication in collaboration with stakeholders. So that will continue again next year. And there may be some added components to that too, which will work with the DTA as well. Yep.
Deep. Anything from Deep?
Deep held their last meeting. Was it 2 weeks ago, Mary? Mary and I attended
was
the
that
meeting.
was the Deep Hall a Breakfast of Champions, and
Oh,
then
we covered that in our last.
We met. Oh yeah, actually we met in June to reflect on that and talk about moving forward for next year. So they're still working out some plans for moving forward for next year.
Danvers Cares.
Same thing. They had the wrap up meeting where they did some celebration of the year, and they did a nice job all throughout the year. So we'll be working over the summer to plan for next year in terms of the youth at risk survey, which we want to implement in the fall, and more programming.
I think that covers everything. Anything else before we go? All right. I'd like a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Janet, please, and feel free to reverse order this time. I know we mixed it up. I made that happen. So we can mix it up if you want, Janet.
Okay. Sean Doherty.
Yes.
Josh Kepnes.
Yes.
Eric Crane.
Yes.
Mike Shannon.
Yes.
Gabe Lopes.
Yes. All right. Motion to adjourn is approved. Danvers, have a great night. Enjoy your summer, everyone. And I'm sure we'll all be speaking in the very near future. Good night, all.